Okay, hi, I'm Olivier Assayas. I make movies. You're listening to Filmwax Radio.
Hello, everybody. Adam Shartoff, your host of Filmwax Radio. This is episode number 431. Special New York Film Festival 2017 edition, or New York Film Festival number 55. Either way, I guess. I went over to see Kent Jones, who is the director of the festival. And, he's one of the programmers, kind of the lead programmer, I guess, or senior programmer. Anyway, I thought I was going to be sitting for 20 minutes. And I was going to have to rush this show up because the film festival has already begun. But when I got there, he had told me, because he had had just recently surgery on his eye. He had a detached retina, and he was healing from that. So he really minimized the amount of work as much as he could that he had to do running around the festival. So he had all of a sudden all this time, and we ended up speaking for, I thought it was going to be 20 minutes, but turned out to be an hour. So this is that conversation, and he's a real film. We're talking about a pretty amazing film guy here. Not only is he a writer about film, but he's a filmmaker, and he, of course, is a programmer. And so the New York Film Festival, if you're considering going, tickets are currently available. The festival is running from right now, which is today, as I record this, the 28th of September, runs through the October the 15th, so there's still time. Go to filmlink.org, filmlinc.org/NYFF for tickets and details about all the great films and talks and everything else that's happening at the New York Film Festival. So let's hit the ground running here right now into my conversation with the director of the New York Film Festival, Kent Jones, back for his third appearance on Filmwax Radio.
Por la deliciosa noche. Pressures are rising for the president to speak out for racial equality.
No, I remember yesterday during Last Flag you were introducing the Q&A, and you mentioned that, I'm not just a jerk wearing sunglasses. I actually have and people snickered. I know that a lot of people laugh uncomfortably sometimes about that, but, it's like somebody who actually has all sorts of eye problems that historically I knew you were very serious. So I hope everything goes smoothly and quickly on Monday and that you're back.
No, I had it on Monday.
Oh, you had it last Monday, hence the sunglasses now.
I had it 4 days ago. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you are in a much better shape because...
well, I'm in much better shape, but I don't have any peripheral vision.
No peripheral vision.
I mean,
right?
I don't. My left eye is like a...
I got it.
Text of white by Stan Brakhage.
So it's almost... Is it like they dilated your pupils almost? Is it that same kind of a sensation?
I suppose so, only more... It's for those of your listeners who are interested in this, it's sort of like... they go into your eye and suck out the vitreous fluid, which I had a vitreous displacement in the eye.
Vitreous?
Yeah,
okay.
The vitreous layer for some people just kind of uncoils.
Oh, I see.
At a certain point, and so I just had all these floaters. And it's the vitreous fluid that probably pulled the retina away, and probably something happened, that I don't even know about, like some.
Yeah, it makes much more sense that the timing is god awful regardless, but it makes more sense that you had the surgery already than you were having it. Like I thought you meant this coming Monday. I'm thinking,
no,
that's going to be tough, right? Because you're having. This is the first day of the festival, technically.
This is the first day of the festival, technically.
That when we're talking.
And what's germane to this conversation is that all of this, occurred after we watched all the movies.
Just so you know, if you're listening and you're a filmmaker or someone associated with the film, it was programmed at the New York Film Festival. He saw it with...
Eyes,
yeah.
That's right.
That's important.
We have no 3D that I saw, so, yeah.
That's right. So, anyway, we did this once before.
Yes.
About 4 years, 3 or 4... maybe it was your first festival, in fact. And then we talked again for Hitchcock Truffaut,
yes.
which still look back at great fondness. So today we're talking about the 55th New York Film Festival.
Yep.
This is always a tricky one to navigate because there's only so much time. You can't talk about all the films. They're all, but we can start with one thing. I was talking to Lisa, one of the publicists, about Lisa Thomas, and rather than get into the whole philosophy of programming here, because we've done it before, but it makes most sense to say that the New York Film Festival is your favorite movies you've seen, and you want to show them to New York audiences. Is it any more complicated than that?
No, I mean, when I think about, it's inevitable, and I don't mind it that every year the question arises: did you pursue any themes this year? What were your criteria? And my answer
wasn't even
is
thinking of that. Yeah.
No, I know that. I'm just
right.
I know that it wasn't.
These are the questions you get.
I do get those questions, and those are fair questions. But my answer is always the same. And that is, pretty much what you just said. It's I don't even know whether it's our favorites. I guess I would say it's the films that are closest to our heart or that really moved us the most. And by the way, there are 4 of us. There's me, and there's Dennis Lim, and there's Amy Tobin, and there's Florence Almazzini. And so obviously we're 4 individuals, and we don't always agree. So... there's some films in the festival that Dennis likes more than the rest of us, that Amy likes more than the rest of us, that various that Florence likes more, that there are various combinations thereof. And, there are some films that we all loved unanimously. But,
so it's a matter of...
Yeah. But the point is, it's not a matter of sitting down and saying, gee, it's been a while since we've had films from... Eastern Europe, when you rate the balance or something like that. I just don't think that ever gets you anywhere, and I think it always winds up transmitting somehow to the viewing audience.
It immediately puts you at odds with yourself in a way, because now you're no longer going from the gut or from the heart, as you already put it, but you're going for...
You're making a calculation.
Yeah, so you're already compromising your own...
I think that there are different kinds of calculations. One of them is that. Another one is, that kind of like writing the balance calculation. Another kind of calculation is what will my audience tolerate? And then a third kind of calculation is what is, the most morally, what's the film that embodies the most, empowering message? That's something that you certainly see in other places, I guess. And then, on the more craven end of things, what movie has the most stars that we can get on the carpet? Right. What's the movie that's most likely to win, the Oscar or the Globes?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
There's a more cynical ways to kind of look.
Yeah, I just think that the problem is that when you get into that kind of calculation, then it's not too difficult to imagine getting it mixed up with questions of value. And I think that's,
I had one other, actually just practical or technical question, which I just wanted to clear up for myself, actually, which is the Film Society Lincoln Center has its subscriber base, and I wonder, you can subscribe to the New York Film Festival.
Yes.
You can buy a block of tickets, right, or just individual tickets. But you can subscribe to the New York Film Festival. Do Film Society members have an automatic subscription to the New York Film Festival? How does that work?
Well, members get
okay
preferential access to buying tickets for the festival. They're members, they're patrons, but I mean, there are different levels of membership.
Yeah.
And so that's how that works.
Okay.
It's not an automatic thing, but it's like there's a you can get the jump on general ticket sales.
Right. I guess I see. Okay, great. Yeah. And the last thing is there a concern about audience is aging out, and is that ever something that? I mean, it's got to be something that's there, right? That's the only other question I guess I have about how you're marketing the festival, maybe, which I guess you're not necessarily involved with that, but you've got to be somehow peripherally involved in that. I don't know how healthy the subscriber base is every year. I don't have a sense of that, but that's not even a good question. It was I just put all this stuff out there.
I mean, of course, that's always the question for every arts organization.
Yeah.
Is the subscriber base aging? And are the younger people, is the youth of America going to keep coming back, right? So, no, I mean...
And again, I kind of feel like putting the best film, just going from the heart is a great strategy, actually, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's... when I think about it, what I think about is... I can think of it in three ways. One is, I think about Brian Eno doing... his systems-based music, like discrete music, for instance, right? And he just built like a simple tape delay system to create discrete music, his first ambient album back in the 70s. And so it's just like his idea, he was very interested in cybernetics, and his idea was you just give one simple instruction, it creates all this complexity, right? Okay. Another way of looking at it is, I think about the mortar and pestle that I have in my kitchen, and the mortar and pestle is like 1,000-year-old, tool.
Yeah.
And I guess that people could devote themselves to thinking about ways to do it differently or more efficiently or to digitize it, but it's just like, there's no need.
It does.
It just does the job.
Efficiently. Yeah.
But the third way of looking at it is just that on a fundamentally human level, I don't think that there is any other way to approach programming. You can program thematically if you say, I'm doing, a festival of films by, people from Southeast Asia. I'm doing a festival of films by women. I'm doing a festival of documentaries about this or that issue, and there are a lot of festivals that do that, and they do an excellent job. It's just that that's a different kind of idea than what we do. And what we do is, fulfill the mission, and fulfilling the mission is sticking to that criterion, the simplicity and the on every level is right where it should be. So in terms of the youth question, I don't think that I think actually the audiences have gotten younger.
They have.
To tell you the truth.
Oh yeah.
And that's it's true. That's not always the case. I mean, if you're going to a dance performance, for instance, the odds are you'll see a lot of younger dancers, but that the core audience will be older. People who are there's that. There's at a lot of symphony music, if you go, it's you are seeing an aging audience. I don't know.
Yeah.
But in our case, I don't think it's true.
And then there's also the New York Film Festival, and specifically is in this great position to champion and support certain filmmakers, like in their careers, because there's a level of commitment to the tradition of storytelling that aligns itself with the Film Society, and the New York Film Festival, and because you see Claire Denis back again, Todd Haynes back again, and the like, and in this year Woody Allen and Noah Baumbach. I could go on and on, internationally actually, and so there's that too. But looking at the films as I have in the last week or two, I'm just looking at fantastic films, so it can be kind of a bit of both going on.
Well, this is where the question of episodic TV comes into play, because I see that as an influence on a lot of movies that are, around, including a lot of movies that win awards. And I think that what I mean by that is that episodic TV, there's the storytelling question, the endless elbowing from one tangent to another, and like ending on a cliffhanger. And then there's also the question of style templates versus, that are chosen by a showrunner with, and then the directors have to kind of follow them. And, there's a whole apparatus there, as opposed to what for me is filmmaking, which is an individual creator. I just don't think that there's any debate about that. you can try to debate it, as I think some people have, because and you get into the questions of like, well, TV is more culturally relevant now. That's at the heart of the quote cultural conversation, quote unquote. I don't think that there is any such thing really. I mean, it's just like TV is designed to, no matter how good it is designed to go down easier. In a sense, and I mean, I'm not saying that there's not a lot of great work on TV. Mad Men was something great. The Wire was something great. Breaking Bad was pretty terrific. But I have to say that when I see something like Mildred Pierce, that's the work of one person.
Which version?
Difference. That's interesting that you say that, because the first version is created under the studio system. So to call it a Michael Curtiz movie is sort of like, you can do that.
Right.
But it's a Warner Brothers movie, and it's a Hollywood movie in the best sense of the term. And by the way, Criterion just did one of the most incredible Blu-rays
I have a
of that
copy.
movie. It's staggeringly beautiful. But
Isn't that nice?
Mildred Pierce to Todd Haynes is what I was talking about, and that's a work.
Yeah. Did you guys show that one? I forget.
No, we didn't.
All right.
We didn't.
Because I know it was serialized for HBO, but it certainly stands on its own.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
So
I guess also the reason I think that we all everybody's taught the zeitgeist is around television is because sheer proliferation. I mean,
sure.
I don't think this would be quite as, we call it the golden age, but I mean, if you have 450 episodics going on, it's going to proliferate, just take over the people's attention as opposed to films. But I think I was just sort of wondering, to see certain filmmakers come back over and over is great. It's great to see the support and the championing of like Todd Haynes, of certain people that seem to have a level of commitment to storytelling that fits with the same level that the New York Film Festival has.
Well, I mean, we're not. That's true. But then we're not committed to them because they fulfill a New York Film Festival standard. We're committed to them because they make great films. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is that there's always an illusion when you look back at the New Hollywood, for instance, that it was just like overflowing with great artists. There were a lot of great, 10 or 12 great artists. There were a lot of other people who were doing more ordinary work. It's just that during that time, obviously it was very different. Viewing habits were very different. Distribution, theatrical, now is like a whole other thing.
Sure.
And so it's like you had, they really were at the center of the quote cultural conversation, unquote. But that aside, because that's just outside of the movie, that's just kind of like fluff stuff. You also had the ordinary movie was better than the ordinary movie now. In other words, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, and that's also true during the studio system, obviously, up through the 50s. So I think there's an illusion that there were, that there was a golden age of like wall-to-wall great artists. And it's like, sort of, but sort of not. It was just, there are never lots of great artists. There's, Claire Denis doesn't, can't split herself off and, become, 2, 4, and 8. Neither can James Gray, and neither can Hong Sang-soo. It's just so, I mean, and then by the same token, it's getting more difficult for people to get films like Claire's movie made. There's no question about that.
What do you mean? It's more difficult to...
It's more difficult to get challenging work made. I mean, it's just the way that it is. It's much easier to get
polite
issue-based
stuff. Documentaries, polite, happy ending still. I mean, or at least,
endings, but,
where
the boxes are all checked.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's a better way of putting it. I think what you're referring to is like the quirkiness. I'm calling it quirky. I mean, it's just unpredictable. Boxes left unchecked is another way of putting it. That type of film was more prevalent in the 70s, and occasionally you'll see it today, but not so much. So somebody can die at the end, even the hero now, but it's, right, there's a catharsis, or something
catharsis,
like that.
Maybe
you're even cheated of a catharsis, actually.
Checking boxes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think I had a significant catharsis at the end of Melancholia, to the degree where when I walked out of that P&I screen, I could not go to the next screening.
Yes.
Where I had to kind of just, go off and
that's a good thing that you did that, because I think that a lot of the time in film festivals, one of the problems that I have going to, a place like Cannes is that it's like, you'll see something overwhelming, and then it's like, oh, got to get,
no time to process it at all.
And so, and then you're, people travel in packs. Like, what did you think of that? You're just like, I just want to go.
Well, that's even to some degree, a Q&A is a difficult thing. I bring this up. My listeners must be sick of it, but I do talk about this because even a Q&A, and I moderate a lot of them over time, is you're already expecting, the audience too is expecting to kind of come up with questions and thoughts that they haven't had really time to process the film yet. In 5 minutes, once the lights come up, they're already kind of expect to have questions. So it's an odd, it's an odd thing.
I think sometimes people ask questions because they feel like somebody needs to ask a question.
Yeah, right.
And that's fine. I mean, it's like, but that does happen.
So you need the Jim Farrat in every audience, as to ask that first icebreaker. That
yes,
love him.
That's right.
Love Jim Farrat.
Yeah, so do I.
And he's an icon.
It was a great moment last year when I was on stage with Jim Jarmusch and Iggy Pop, and Jim was in the audience for the public screening of Gimme Danger.
Oh, right, Gimme Danger.
He raised his hand. And
you chose him, so right.
Yeah, no, I didn't even know it was him.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a public screening. But he raised his hand and he started speaking, and I turned to Iggy, and he said Jim Farrat, and Iggy turned to me, and so he said, "Who's that?" And so I said, "It's Jim Farrat." He said, "Is it Jim Farrat, or is it somebody quoting Jim Farrat?"
Anyway, yeah. Where were we at? Anyway, I think actually I got my answers that I've asked. Well, this year we could talk, I guess, about the three linchpins, or whatever we call them, the opening night. Why not? Yeah. No, I know that. I wasn't going to even go there. I think that's a coincidence, if I'm not mistaken. And now there's a lot of films that are, either Amazon or Netflix films. Sure. I mean, I love the Baumbach film. I just saw it the other day also, and I loved it. And,
yes, me too. And it has the best line I've heard all year.
Which is?
Delivered about as beautifully as I can imagine by Emma Thompson. He reminds me of an old lover. He's smooth but muscular. He reminds me of an old lover of mine, Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, that did get the biggest laugh in it.
Yeah.
I think that got the biggest laugh.
Yeah,
it was so tossed off, but...
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I recognized her and didn't recognize her in that movie. That's how amazing she was in that.
She's an amazing actress.
Yeah. I also relate personally to certain themes, the theme in that movie, and, about having a parent who's, well, not necessarily the narcissistic parent, but a medical situation and the dynamics among the siblings and children and all that.
Yes.
I can definitely relate to it right now. And so it was just a very, I let it sort of wash over me, this film, and really enjoyed it. And it's not any of the opening night centerpiece or closing night. It just came up. But I'm almost sorry that most people see it on Netflix, because I guess... But it has theatricals. Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, there are a lot of films There are a lot of films now that are shot on 16.
Yeah.
That includes Mother, Moonrise Kingdom, Meyerowitz Stories. You can do things with 16. And Wonderstruck, right? I think.
Oh, yeah, of course it is. I'm sure it is.
I mean, you can do things with 16, and you can get more mobility. The cameras are smaller, and, then you're able to work it so that you can get an incredible image. And
but they're going to have a digital
everything's digital now.
Right.
I mean,
other than a couple of theaters that are able to show projected.
for the final product. But even what I'm talking about is when you're making the movie, you're doing all the post work digitally. I mean, I don't really even know if it's possible to do analog color correction anymore. I don't think it is. Mm-hmm. I think Paul Thomas Anderson tried to do it for Inherent Vice, and he couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Just because there's no facilities anymore, you'd have to.
Nobody does.
No equipment. Okay, right.
Nobody does it. Yeah. And you get, you have. That's probably one area where it really is a plus, because it just gives you much more. You can really work it and get in there and do things that people were never able to do.
Right. So the opening night film, which already opened, so I don't know if it's worth even talking about, but we can mention it because it is, in fact, Last Flag Flying, which I also saw yesterday, which is, of course, Richard Linklater's film. Mm-hmm. And then the centerpiece is Wonderstruck, right? Todd Haynes' new film. Mm-hmm. And a closing night is perhaps, in a way, the biggest surprise was for me is Woody Allen's Wonder Wheel. Mm-hmm. And with Kate Winslet. And I remember reading the press release which was sent out to us. To quote you, you walked out of the theater after having seen it. I don't know where you saw it, but you were speechless.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
you want me to enlarge on that?
If you're inclined. But I'm just, because, I haven't been speechless in a positive way walking out of a Woody Allen movie in a while.
Well, but see, Woody Allen is full of surprises because, for one thing, there have been several times in his career when it seemed like, okay,
true, right? I know where you're going. Yeah, yeah.
And he's just going to keep making stuff that's watchable. It seemed like perhaps that was happening, and then suddenly Midnight in Paris came along. I don't know about you, but I loved that movie. And then after Midnight in Paris, maybe it seemed like it was going in that direction, and then there's this.
So you think this is his strongest film since that Midnight?
I do, and he's made some really good films. I mean, Blue Jasmine is a very good film, and I thought To Rome with Love was hilarious. I mean, it's not as big or ambitious a work as these other ones, but I really enjoyed it. But this is it's so different. It's a whole new pursuit. It's a memory movie, but in a very different way from Radio Days. Very different. Because of something that I hesitate to talk about, really, but it's just the story in a very, there's a very simple thing that happens at the beginning of the movie, and the story's kind of refracted in a way that's different. And the material is very rooted in a form of drama that, we're used to seeing 80, 90 years ago. I mean, it's there's that. On the other hand, what he and Vittorio Storaro do together absolutely bowled me over. I mean, there's the special effects recreation of Coney Island, which is stunning.
Right.
I mean, really stunning. And then there's, the boldness of what they do with changing color temperature within a shot. That's something that Storaro's done frequently throughout his career, but shooting on HD gives him a lot more leeway with it. Then there's also Kate Winslet's performance, which is just like, one of the bravest performances I've seen by any actor anywhere in any movie in like the last 10 years.
Wow.
She's really like, and I don't want to say more about it than that.
But boy. But is it to keep things vague in terms of referencing something you've already said? Is it the dramatic situation that Kate Winslet's character finds herself in, and the character in of itself that kind of reminds you of the movies that you were talking about, maybe these from the 30s or whenever you were referencing?
No, I mean, what I mean by that is that it's, as everybody knows, there's a lot of anxiety from actors about age. about how old or how young they're going to look when they're on screen. The most extreme version of it, of course, is the people who really wind up defacing themselves, you know.
Yeah.
The less extreme version of it is people who find ways to tweak this or that in the costume design, or this or that with the hair or with the makeup, to just sort of like, you know, say, well, I'm all in, but then at the last minute kind of like, well, but I think I'm not gonna, let's do this because I think it'll look better. But it's not about it looking better. It's about them looking better. Yeah. Anyway, you know, so I think that
men and women, by the way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really rare to have an actor that's able to go as far as De Niro did, you know, in Raging Bull, or as far as Nicholson did, or as far as, you know, something like, for instance, what Catherine Deneuve did in My Favorite Season by Andre Téchiné. I mean, you know, really just like, or what Juliette Binoche does in Claire Denis' movie. So
the new one that's
at the Sunshine
at the festival,
and there's just no vanity, there's no worry, and that's
Julia
really,
Delpy did it too in
Before Midnight,
in those movies. I think she just aged, and it was very powerful.
Yeah, particularly in Before Midnight, Patricia Arquette. You know, there's no vanity whatsoever, and so you know she just gives herself completely to the character.
So we're seeing that, and I think I've seen this all along with Kate, even though she's obviously, you know, she's less voluptuous than she was once. I don't know, but other than that, I see somebody who's from the beginning put herself out there in that way.
Well, I mean, yeah, in the very best sense, and I mean, she is. The character in this movie is on the cusp of middle age.
Yeah.
And so she just gives herself to it.
Okay.
And that sort of like in between thing.
But it's a commitment.
She looks younger in some light and looks older in other light.
Yeah.
And so, boy, I mean, you know, I was just in awe of that performance.
And, because I guess I've had a kind of a thing about it, you know, about having sat through a number of real disappointments and just vowing not to go back to see a Woody Allen movie again. And, you know, this is somebody who grew up.
Sure.
You know, and as even a kid, because we didn't have like 1,000 kids movies. I was talking about this recently, somebody, where the movies we went to see were made for grown-ups.
Yes.
Like Noah Baumbach was talking about, I think. Or
yes.
So we went to see James Bond. I guess that was like the closest thing we kind of had, you know, to...
How old are you?
54 as of the other day.
Yeah, I'm just a couple years older than you. I mean...
Yeah. So Woody Allen and Mel Brooks was children's movies in a sense, you know.
Yeah, that's... Well,
you know,
yes and no. I mean...
Very different ones, but that's what we went to and looked for. I quoted at school and...
Yeah, there were children's movies that were being made, but they were really for children. I mean, stuff like
I guess I'm talking about
shoes, you know, stuff. I mean, I think that it was James Bond movies and Superman, you know, were about as
you just coming into that age. There was that's where it started in the maybe late 70s, where there were, you know. I was already a teenager, so yeah. But that's when I started going to movies on my own, I guess. But I'm just saying, Woody Allen, of course, very strongly remembered the first dramas, and I guess at a certain point, I realized I'm just not. I don't relate anymore, and it was a big deal, a very, very big deal for me too. I'm not even going into his personal life, right? That's not necessary, but I had to. It was kind of painful to let go of that, you know, to kind of say I don't. You know, I really just don't like what I'm seeing anymore, just on an artistic level. But it would be great to go to find something that really moved me. You know. Well, so I'm hoping.
You know, I feel like at a certain point, for instance, I went back and I watched Manhattan Murder Mystery. To me, that's an absolute thing of beauty. It's just kind of a perfect comedy. I think Sweet and Low Down is a pretty extraordinary movie. I don't know. That's the virtue of just working. You just...
Sure.
It's like, okay, now it's time to make another film.
Yeah.
And you just, like, see what's there. And if it's not the one that you have been dying to make, that's okay. You just make it. And so, I'm... Nobody else really does that now. I suppose Takashi Miike does it. But, that when you're making that much stuff, it's just kind of becomes something else.
Ozon, as I see, is probably one of the most prolific filmmakers.
He's pretty prolific, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, Hong Sang-soo obviously is prolific.
Hong Sang-soo, you got 2 in this festival, right?
Yes, that's right. It's our annual Hong Sang-soo.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing about that body of work is that it's different because every film builds on the last one.
Yeah.
It's like someone's ongoing diary, It's fascinating seeing the career path.
Yeah. With Hong Sang-soo,
yes,
specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I do. I think you're right. And if you watch Ozon, you're sometimes like, where did that one come from? But you're right. It's like, it's just a particular work ethic. It's like trying things out as much, you're willing to fail as much as you're wanting to succeed.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It's a willingness there, which you just, that's a way of approaching it, which is, there's not a lot of cases of that or examples of that, going all the way back to the beginning. I mean, you don't see that with Hitchcock, to go to one of your guys. I mean, you just wouldn't have, I don't think you would have risked it.
Not just one of my guys. I don't know. They're all, yeah.
Well, you made a movie about him.
But I mean, he just, but the thing is that it's, there's something that David Fincher brought up when I was making the movie, and he's just like, the thing is that it's like, that guy got to make 50 plus movies, and so he said that just isn't possible now. Can you imagine getting to hone your craft like that? So he said, we started in rock videos and that was great, but it's not the same thing. And so you just, as you get older, you don't get that many at bats, and so it really is not to be underestimated. And he's right. Bergman, you could point to another example. You could point to Truffaut, just like, or Claude Chabrol, which is closer to Woody Allen,
sure.
I think.
I agree with that too.
Yeah.
There's,
but the way that it works, it was strange back during that time to witness the career of Stanley Kubrick, who would make one movie every like 3, 4, 5 years, And I think it was how long was it from Barry Lyndon to The Shining? That was 5 years. And then from The Shining to Full Metal Jacket was 7 years. So it was just like, now that's the norm. I mean, 7 years is a little extreme, but still, it's not uncommon for a director to go for 3 years between movies. I think Marty Scorsese approaches it differently in the sense that he's always got a documentary working. And so, and Marty's just as committed
and
to
a lot of other business too, and possibly producing some television as well as restoration, preservation, all sorts of things. That's constantly creating this momentum of,
that's quite true.
of creativity.
Yeah. No, it's there've been times over there where it's like, I remember when we were making the Kazan movie, it was like we were in one cutting room. David Tedeschi was in another cutting room making, I think, Living in the Material World, maybe, or No Direction Home. I can't remember. And then, Marty and Thelma were cutting something else, and it was really like, a factory. It was great.
Is he doing a documentary now? Is there something new?
He's working on something. Yeah, but I can't.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's
not your place.
But I don't think it's common knowledge. Okay. But then, Irishman is shooting there.
Right, yeah. Which is going to be a spectacular thing, no matter how it turns out. Because he's kind of gone full circle in the casting there, right? With De Niro, Pesci.
Yep.
Harvey Keitel's in it? Is Al that Pacino. Al Pacino. It's unbelievable. Yep. All in one. How do they all fit?
I don't know if Frank Vincent was going to be in.
Oh, right. The late Frank Vincent.
Probably was going to. He was great.
How could he not be in that?
Oh, boy, he was great.
Keep him here.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was terrific. Oh, I got to let you go. I think you're busy.
No, I'm not. I'm okay because I have to clear a lot of my schedule because of the eye.
Oh, okay. That's good. And this doesn't strain you. In fact, it works to your advantage that you can't see me very well.
Yeah, it does.
Well, then we can talk about a couple more things. Why not? And I'll just have a little editing work to do. That's. Are you involved in the retrospective within the New York Film Festival is going to be about? Are like this year? It's Mitchum.
Yeah,
and
I mean, yes. The sections that I'm not involved with are Convergence, that's programmed by Matt Bolish, and Projections is programmed by Dennis Lim and Eileen Nash, and the Shorts program.
And the documentary?
No, that's us.
Okay.
Yeah, the documentaries, the revivals, the retrospective, the special events.
Yeah. Did you play a part in the? This is all recent too, like the Convergence, correct? And
Convergence was underway. I mean, when I started as the director of the festival, that was 3 years away from here, and then I came back as the director. That was 2013. The world premiere mandate and the 3 big slots was already in place. I thought it would be good, after doing it for 1 year, it would be good to amend that so that, one of the slots could possibly be not a world premiere.
Is this again the opening night, closing
opening
night?
Centerpiece, closing night.
There's 2 is always going to be.
Last year I think all 3 were world premieres, but
it's not.
Yeah,
it's so much of an imperative.
I mean, opening night is probably the one that
Okay, and that was made by just the society. That was like a decision.
That was a decision that Rose Kuo made.
Oh, Rose,
she was the executive director, and it was, the thing is that it sort of like changes the perception of it puts the festival in another light, but then it doesn't turn it into a festival that's nothing but world premieres. That would not have been a good idea.
No,
so I think it was a really good decision, and but the criterion is still, we have to like it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to how we started. It's just like, I think, here we have New Yorkers. They love films.
Yeah.
They're not going to Cannes. They're not going to Berlin. They're not going to Telluride, blah, blah, blah. And, here's why should they? They can go to the New York Film Festival, at home, have this incredible experience going to the most beautiful theaters, seeing the best projection, and then engaging with the filmmakers and possibly cast members and other.
I mean, we don't overlap. We do overlap with Cannes, but we don't overlap that much with Telluride.
Yeah, I just said it because it's a big festival, but I wasn't really even thinking about. I mean, I know it's Locarno or Berlin and whatever.
I mean, I think I have to say that I'm still mystified that the Cannes Film Festival opened with a shortened cut of Ismail's Ghost. that's just So I'm really proud to be showing Arnaud's, the film that he intended.
Déplachin.
Yes,
and with quite a cast. Unfortunately, I missed I might have to come to a public screening of that. Actually,
it's no hardship. I mean,
I need to ask.
It's a
I need
wild,
to request.
amazing movie.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the retrospective before, and
sorry. Mm-hmm.
This is the first year that I've programmed it with someone else, with Dan Sullivan, who's a year-round programmer here at the Film Society. And Dan said, "What about Robert Mitchum?" And I was like, "Okay, that's a great idea." It's the first time. We did a Fox thing one year, but since I came back. But other than that, it's been filmmakers. It was Godard, Joseph L. Mankiewicz.
Not an actor, in other words.
Right. And so Mitchum is an actor who makes sense to me. It's a centenary, obviously. And he's also... the career is so interesting because, he started at the same time, roughly, as, say, Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster, William Holden. Holden started a little bit earlier. And I guess it would be, Holden, Mitchum, Lancaster, Douglas, something like that. So I think he probably made more movies than Kirk Douglas. He probably was in about as many good ones as William Holden. his choices were wilder, I guess.
Not Billy Wilder, but just
no.
great, but less predictable or
That's
less.
right.
Yeah,
More wild. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. And his acting really helps to shape the movies that he's in. Now, you can say that's true of all of those people. But I think that in his case, it helps to shape the movies visually in a way because of his sense of rhythm and because of his sense of quiet and the musical temperament that he had. And I mean, he was a guy who wrote music. He wrote Sonny, for instance, the song Sonny.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he wrote some oratorio. He wrote an oratorio.
He was
that was
composer?
Well, I don't, of a kind. And, he's somebody who, I don't know if you've ever seen that interview that he did with Dick Cavett, but that's just like one of the more mesmerizing hours of television you're ever going to see. And he just does not, he certainly has the charisma of a movie star, but the temperament is more that of a poet or a jazz musician. He's just, it's a mellifluous delivery.
You have a very articulate way of describing him. And I was thinking originally when it came up, I was thinking kind of like a character hidden, behind a leading man. Like he obviously was a leading man, but not in that classic Hollywood sense, But maybe all the great ones weren't in a certain level. I think that
the post-war actors shared.
Yeah.
All these guys, Robert Ryan would be another one, shared this kind of disenchantment.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Douglas perhaps a little less.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Still, I mean, if you're watching A Letter to Three Wives, which is, really one of my favorite movies, I think, his character in that is he's disenchanted in a way that's different from Burt Lancaster in The Killers, or Robert Ryan in On Dangerous Ground. He's ebullient and disenchanted at the same time. So I think that Mitchum, it goes beyond disenchantment. It's something else. It feels like it's something that's more a way of being, I guess, that's more than a reaction that just seems like inborn. And, on the other hand, there's also a real joy and a truth of spirit in his movies that I find, really beautiful. And, he did make a lot of stuff that's just kind of like, marking time. But the ones that he did where he recognized that he was doing something that was worthwhile are really, really special. And I mean, he is in, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 of, some of the best movies that came out of America during the 20th century. And he was also good pretty much right up to the end. I mean, a lot of people, I think, struggled after the 60s. The studio system came apart. I'm not saying that he didn't do his share of garbage during that time.
Right.
He made the Amsterdam Kill and, the remake of The Big Sleep, which is just, you're like, how did that happen? But then he made The Yakuza and Farewell My Lovely and The Friends of Eddie Coyle, which is just like one of the great performances I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just staggering in that film.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a movie. That is not a star turn. that's something else.
All of those will be in this, right? They're in the Friends of Eddie Coyle, of course.
Yeah, Friends of Eddie Coyle is a movie that I've loved ever since I saw it when I was 13 years old.
Got to see that
for many reasons. One of them is that it's a Massachusetts movie, and that's where I grew up, and it's just not a part of the world that. Even now, it's not a part of the world that you really associate with movies so much. It seems like, it's more of a literature kind of place.
Right. Yeah. For not so arbitrarily, but yeah.
Right.
A lot of schools out that way in Massachusetts. Right. Yep. Where were you in Massachusetts, by the way?
I was born in the Berkshires.
You were?
So the other end of the
like
state from
Pittsfield?
Yeah, Pittsfield. I was born in Pittsfield.
Pittsfield. Yeah. Oh, very good.
Which is where Melville wrote Moby Dick.
Right. Yeah.
And Pierre of the Ambiguities.
Is there a
Hawthorne lived in Lenox for a couple of years. That's where they became friends. And Edith Wharton, Ethan Frome, the hill that he goes down is the hill that I went down every day to go to school. And,
Yeah. So did that have an impact on you in the is it growing when you were growing up?
Well, sure. I mean, the part of the world where anybody grows up has an impact on them. Obviously,
well,
it's
well, I mean, in terms of, I guess, the career. I mean, I could see why a literary kind of environment. I don't know what your parents did, so
my dad was a DJ,
okay.
and my mother was a teacher. She taught history when I was a kid, and then she taught Latin later. And they're both gone. When the thing about the Berkshires is that it's right in the middle of there's Tanglewood and Lenox, there's Williams College and the Clark Art Institute in Williamstown. Down county there's Stockbridge, which is Norman Rockwell land, among other things. And so the Berkshires was always like an artistic enclave.
Yeah.
My mother worked during the summers for the BSO, and
what's that?
The Boston Symphony Orchestra at Tanglewood.
Yes,
so I used to go there all summer long.
Oh, right.
And just go to rehearsals, and I saw.
You didn't go to summer camp in the Berkshires?
No, not really. I mean, the Berkshires kind of is.
It is
I was just out in
maybe
Pittsfield's a city, but it's so close to the country. Yeah. And so there was a lot of music. Leonard Bernstein, fixture of my childhood, Seiji Ozawa, and then the literature is just what I wasn't reading Herman Melville when I was 10 years old, but it was there. In the landscape when I came to him, Pierre the Ambiguities. In Pierre, there's a moment when Pierre lies down under this enormous rock that's balanced on, a smaller rock, but that's Balance Rock, Pittsfield. It's a place you can actually go. Yeah. It's covered with graffiti now. Melville's home is right there on Holmes Road down the street from where I went to school, and you're surrounded by these hills that are very low, but they're all around. I remember the first time I ever went out west, I was just freaked out by the open space because your eye can just, see for miles and miles, and I just never had encountered that. And I think that it really, and then I found Hawthorne, when I was older, and then that, most of that Salem, he didn't spend that much time in the Berkshires, but still the connection between literature and the place is very, very strong. My best friend in the world is a poet, and he grew up in the Berkshires, Peter Gizzi. And so all during that time there were 5 movie theaters up and down the main street, and I grew up watching cabaret Chinatown scenes from A Marriage, Fellini's Casanova, whatever. It was just, obviously they're all gone now.
Yeah.
And Ingmar Bergman and Roman Polanski movies are not being shown in multiplexes. But it's just like, this is it was an amazing place to cultivate an interest in movies, I guess.
I guess it still is, even though those theaters aren't there anymore. You mentioned it was like an artistic enclave. It's I think even though it may not be like it was, it's still kind of an enclave. It's just that it's...
Pittsfield, when GE pulled out in the 80s, went into a precipitous decline. I mean, really. And it's only now starting to really come back. It also had a bad urban renewal thing that happened in the late 60s, where the heart of downtown was just kind of torn out, and this not so great building was put up. It's a Crown Plaza now, which is true of a lot of places. I mean, apparently a friend of mine who studied civic planning told me that Pittsfield was often cited as an example of urban renewal gone wrong.
Yeah.
Because it just, kind of cut the heart of the city. It took out an old train station that was very beautiful and kind of like the old Penn Station.
Mm.
But it was a wild place to grow up. And I just made a movie this year myself.
You made
it's very much about my own experience growing up, and I didn't shoot it there. I shot it in Kingston, New York. But,
okay, I could see that though. The Hudson Valley, there's some towns there that
it's roughly the same.
Yeah,
part of the world, and it's the same kind of feeling, and it's also not just the Berkshires; it's central Massachusetts. It's the world of my aunts and cousins and stuff.
Oh, it's a narrative.
Oh yeah.
Have you done that before?
No,
I don't think so.
No, I wrote it for Mary Kay Place. I had it in mind for a long time.
And did she know that you wrote it for her? I mean, I should say, hold on, as you were writing it, I guess you had her in mind.
Well,
she reminded you of your aunt on some level, or is that what?
I'm an only child, and my parents were only children, but my grandmother was the oldest of 10.
Yeah, crazy.
And they all grew up on the Canadian border. Their father was a woodsman. All my great aunts and uncles, and they went through the Depression, and they really
mm-hmm.
and they had they shared this amazing sense of humor and a really genuine stoicism and a genuine toughness.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw The Rainmaker, the Coppola movie based
mm-hmm.
on the Grisham novel, Mary Kay plays the mother of the boy who dies of cancer in that film, and she had that manner. And
you just recognize something in
there. I mean, with an Oklahoma twang, but it's the same kind of stoicism. And so I had it in mind a long time ago to do something about my family for her. And then I met her a few years back, and I said, you know what, gulp.
Yeah.
Let me send you another script that I wrote, and you can. And so she was like, and she wrote to me in 2015, early 2015. My mother had just passed away. And asked me where I was at, and I decided I wasn't going to write her back until I had a finished product. And I kind of wrote most of it when I was doing post on Hitchcock Truffaut in Paris.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a big deal at this point now, making your first narrative film. And
it's I'm happy with it.
Uh-huh.
And I had, Estelle Parsons is in it. And
I was going to ask you.
Andrea Martin, who I always worship the ground she walks on. Jake Lacey plays Mary Kay's son.
Okay.
Yeah. We shot it in 20 days.
It's all
we did.
So it's an independent film.
It's an independent film, but I really, Oren Moverman is the one who really made it happen.
Did he produce it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes. Yeah, I adore him. He's done the show a couple of times, and I'm sort of a fan.
It means that I can't render an opinion about his films anymore for the New York Film Festival, but
exactly.
I have to let it.
Well, it did bring that up. I'm not going to go into that because there's just not enough. There isn't enough time, but it does bring up the cross-discipline aspects of what we do nowadays. There's a lot of people that kind of are doing a number of different things, like if there are people that actually write about film and make films and. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know, like Michael Tully and these other guys, but there's a lot of people now. It's and they program potentially sometimes, or they're on screening committees or what have you. Or I'm in there too, actually. Mm-hmm. It's a blurry, a little bit more complicated. The nature of relationships and the nature of ethics and all that starts getting slightly murkier. You have to be very cautious, I guess, when you tread.
Sure,
is really what it comes down to.
I mean,
think about. Thoughtful.
There are a few different things that are, for me, that's always been, the first year that I came back, we showed Jimmy P. I co-wrote the script, with Arnaud.
Oh, right. Of course you did.
I had to, obviously I said, okay, I have to recuse myself, but everybody loved it, so that was great.
Yeah.
And then the year after that, we wound up showing the 50-year argument by Marty, the one about the New York Review of Books, and I didn't work on that until the end, but I worked on it, and I'm credited as like a creative consultant or something like that. So again, I had to make that clear, and I think and there's that side of it, and it's you just have to be clear. On the other hand, and by the way, people have asked me, it's like, so are we going to see your film in the New York Film Festival? I'm like, no, why would? Of course we're not.
A year out.
Why would I do? Well, also it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna put my film in the New York Film Festival. I think that'd be really great for me and the film.
Yeah, right.
And then the other side of it, though, is just that the last piece of criticism that I've published.
Another good answer, by the way, would have been. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kent, but another good answer goes, well, I'm going to put it in Cannes first, then I'm going to put it in.
That's right. That's my master plan.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, the last piece of criticism I wrote was published in Film Comment over a year ago, I guess, and I don't know how much more that I have to. I guess that making the documentaries that I have has been one thing. Making this film is something different. It's walking through a door and a different kind of experience.
That's interesting. Yeah, you're evolving or what have you. Don't you love the passive aggressive my way of doing this thing where I say we're not going to talk about it, and I lead you right into the conversation regardless. That's what I did.
Doesn't feel passive aggressive.
All right. Well, it's like this apologetic. We can't talk about that. But if you had something to say about it, I won't stop you. How do I see by the way, I have not seen the Val Lewton documentary and Letters to Kazan or Ilya.
A letter to Ilya.
A letter to Ilya. I may have seen that one now that I think about it.
A letter to Ilya.
That's Martin Scorsese was produced that, or what?
Well, he and I co-directed.
Oh, you did that? Okay.
Yeah.
So that should not be so hard to find, right? That one.
Yeah. I think there's a Blu-ray of it now. I don't know. It might be appended to a Kazan film. It was in that box as a DVD, that massive box collection of Kazan's films. But DVDs. It's like something in this for the Smithsonian now. The Val Lewton movie, which is called Man in the Shadows, Marty produced and narrated, and I wrote it and directed it. And that's actually an extra on the Criterion Cat People Blu-ray.
Oh.
I'm proud to say.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, so I can do that one.
Yeah.
I'll get a copy of that. It's a good idea anyway. Which, by the way, there's no cat. I kept looking for it. I didn't see a cat. That is maybe what Val Lewton, right? Did it also a leopard movie or something?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I guess he liked cats. I don't know. Yeah.
I know. But they never appeared in the films. I think he just...
No, there's a...
Is there?
Sure. The panther.
Oh, okay.
In both movies.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, so she goes to the zoo.
Okay.
In Cat People.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But, okay. Anyway, Val Lewton.
And then Leopard Man, there is a leopard. There is a Black Panther. I think that what you're thinking of is the scene in the pool.
Yeah.
Where you just see the shadows.
Yeah. It's a lot of what you don't see.
Actually used his own fists.
Okay.
To made a shadow, although some of it's...
He's doing shadow puppets?
Too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, kind of. To create a shadow effect on the wall of the room with the swimming pool, so that you see the shadow and the shadow of the water.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Shimmering of the water. Yeah.
The New York Film Festival takes place this year. Well, it's now, as you're listening, but it's September 28th through October 15th. Tickets are available. filmlink.org/NYFF.
That's right.
That's very easy to find. I mean, tickets to this, or you can come right to Alice Tully Hall and get tickets. Or
in addition to a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, there are a lot of great talks too.
Right.
Rick Linklater and I are going to do the On Cinema thing tomorrow, and that's going to be fun. Where every year Filmmaker chooses clips from other people's films, the films that they
broken lines, broken strings,
the first year
broken threads,
was with James Gray. Second year was Paul Thomas Anderson. Last year was Hou Hsiao-hsien. And this year it's Rick.
So is that one of the free things?
No, not that one.
Right.
No, but there are a lot of free talks.
There are a lot of free talks, and pretty impressive ones too. So I guess it's just a matter of showing up early.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you, really, and wish you a speedy
thanks, man.
recovery with the eyes. The eye rather
it's
the retina.
happening.
Yeah.
I got to put 90 drops in a day. But.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks, and I hope for the next feature that will we'll have a chance to do it again.
Yeah, it's called Diane.
Diane?
Yep.
And it's looking like the spring, or maybe even sooner? Sounds like you're...
Maybe. I mean,
sounds like you're well along in it. So
I mixed it in June. I did the color correct when I got back. The mix was in Skywalker, which was an amazing experience.
We can talk about that next time, too.
Yep.
Yeah. So now it's festival submission time. Has it been doing that?
Yeah, seems
Isn't there a big one coming up?
There might be.
The deadline. Anyway, best of luck with everything,
Thank you.
And I'll see you around the festival here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.